Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Workshop Play Show, and welcome to one of the most amazing states in the world. And yes, I am virtually live here with this beautiful backdrop. And this is not just a computer image. This is actually the backdrop of the beautiful state of Florida and why so many people love living, working, shopping, and playing here. We've streamed off this show to be able to talk to the rest of the world and show them why this is the number one state people are moving in. This is the number one state when you talk about freedom and entrepreneur and tourism. It's some of the biggest things that make our state the best in the nation. And how can your state be like it? You just got to mimic us. That's the best way. And we're talking about mentoring and mimicking. My guest here today, Justin Michael. Justin, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Good to see you.
Now, you coach a lot of people and you use that philosophy behind it. You mimic someone successful, you copy them, you copy the pattern. So, to be able to live and be in an environment like this and be in a control your destiny, so to say, you work with a lot of different businesses on how to, and individual people on how to have a life like this, correct?
Yeah, that's really true. I was in the private sector and I was doing software sales for 20 years. So I worked for Salesforce and LinkedIn and I got to travel quite a bit doing that, right? But I went off on my own and built a consultancy. And since that time, I lived in Italy and Dubai and Zurich and Switzerland. So the whole digital nomad thing is phenomenal. And I work with people to increase their income, increase their pipeline. And I have a wide variety of systems and formulas, models, and techniques to really acquire clients and build up a business, because something like 40% of Americans side hustle. And a lot of people, as they get older, they go into consulting and advising, and they have various degrees of expertise, and they're thinking, wait a second, there's a trillion a year, 1 trillion with a T, going through consulting, and I want a bite of that apple, right? I might retire, I might go to Florida, but how can I now get on Zooms and advise people around the world, as far away as, Scandinavia to Singapore to Canada. I mean, I have clients all over the world that I'm helping do this, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I think it's also, you can look at it like it's an obligation. One of the big things that I learned early on from a mentor that shared a lot with me is he said, there'll be a day and a time in your life when you need to pass this on. And you teach it through your kids, through clients, through members that you work with or employees that you work with. You want to share this. And, I thought it was very easy. And what I found in my lifetime very quick, mentoring and training people is not as easy as it looks.
That's really true. I tell a lot of people, if you want to have behavioral change over the age of seven, it's kind of hard. We kind of form. But I think if someone has the impetus to want to make a change, it's interesting. People don't want to change, but then, right, we got 2026 coming. Maybe it's right, new year, new year. You're gonna try a new diet, new exercise program. So I always tell people, like, I could go to the gym and help you bench press your body weight, but I can't get under you and push it for you, right? You have to have the will, and I'm going to come through and help you with the skill set, and the mindset and the technique. So, adult learning and adult behavior change is a very unique subject matter, and that's what I've done. I mean, I've worked with hundreds of companies and over 1,000 individuals one to one, and there's a lot of interesting elements. Like, there's sort of an upper limit. There's a book by Gay Hendricks called The Upper Limit Problem, and we tend to sort of hold ourselves at a specific income level, a specific success level. And I would ask you that, right? You've had a lot of success. Was there a moment where you broke through? And did that happen to you because of a mentor or a coach or a decision you made internally, Joe, that kind of went, okay, here's the next level, right? There's 25-year-old Joe, and now here's 35-year-old Joe, and now that you're 36, right?
You're true. It's something that going through life that I learned very quick. I learned there's two ways to learn something. You can learn it the hard way, go out there and bust your butt and get the crap knocked out of you, or you can turn around and mimic somebody that or listen to people that are successful. And definitely having coaches. In my sports and entertainment part of my life, coaches are such a pivotal part of the athlete's success. You talk about some of the biggest athletes, boxers. Everybody goes, well, who's their coach? They have a manager, they have a coach, they have a trainer. Those people work with them. Who do you see mostly as clients that come to you, and what is their reasoning for coming to you? Is it based on financial gain? Is it based on being a better person? What are some of the bigger reasons?
Well, yeah, I love how Jim Rohn said that the best reason to become a millionaire is the person you become along the way, not really the financial outcome, right? But there's 500 million small businesses. There are about 5 million people that sell technology. There are just tens of thousands of artificial intelligence startups now. So I work with a lot of high technology salespeople and a lot of tech companies, a lot of even in like real estate, insurance, anywhere where there's phone selling or, emailing or people trying to do things on LinkedIn. I work for LinkedIn, I work for Salesforce. So I have a lot of that pedigree, but people are really coming in because they're seeing that opening's the new closing. There are just so many channels from TikTok to Reddit to all these different places, and they're trying to understand how can they break through, how can they land clients, how can they differentiate, and are they going to get a team of VAs, or are they going to get a sales team on the side? Are they going to build something internally? What if they're a founder or a GM and they want to go out and we all have a phone and a Gmail and a LinkedIn, and we have to go create business, right? We can rub shoulders in events and do in-person things as well. I did all that. I was on the road for 20 years, but they're coming to me for a system to be able to, meet people like you. They want to meet C-level executives. They want to up level their client base, sell a bigger ticket item, move up the market. They want to build tech stack automations that just, work through agents and the AI stuff. So yeah, it really runs the gamut. I'm solving the same niche problem though, right? I'm solving that opening problem because most people, I think, just get in front of more clients, they can close them.
Now, how do you see technology? Technology has gone crazy today. Certainly, when I started 25, 30 years ago, maybe a little more than that, but well, 25 years ago. So it was when I started 25 years ago, we had just gotten into emails. We barely had cell phones. You certainly didn't want to use them because they were very expensive. None of us knew what the word internet was. How do you see all that playing in today's environment? And how do you tell a person, because there's so much out there, you Google people now and you can find good and bad with them. How do you tell your client to manage that, and how important is that?
Right. Well, I wrote a book called Cold Call Algo for algorithm, and the idea of the book wasn't actually to have AI do the calls, although that technology exists, and it was banned. Actually, you get like I could write an AI that sounds just like Joe Mullins and make it call, but you're not supposed to actually use them. But it does exist. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the element of technology can be used for thoughtfulness to slow down and do research and to get a better value prop, and it can speed you up and make you a lot more efficient. I mean, there is automation you can run across LinkedIn. You can send automated emails. There's a lot of efficiency gains. But I think right now it's moving two ways. One, I don't know if you hear this in your industry, but there's this concept of like AI slop, right? You're getting messaging on some platform and you feel like it's written by a machine and you're going like, uh-oh, the AI is talking to me. You're on a site, it starts chatting at you, and you're really feeling like, I don't know, dehumanized, right? So there's an opportunity now to go old school and pick up the phone and get face to face. Or you can, like, when you're writing, you can use it as an editor, or you can use it for research. Like I'm in research right now, I'm just pop that into Grok or ChatGPT and say, okay, give me everything you know on Joe Mullins and what would be most important to him. And maybe it'll hallucinate, and maybe I'll show it to you. I'll get some of it right. So in the research phase, and then when you're having calls, like I could run the AI across this call, and it could look at me emotionally. Hey, Justin, you could have had a better listen to talk ratio. You could have read Joe better at this point. And then in the aftermath, what is the follow up that's going to be most, from a disc profile or analysis? What kind of person is Joe based on the analysis? And then what kind of messaging is going to be most effective to close him after the show?
That's amazing. That's
And
amazing stuff. We've
yeah.
gone to such a degree. I was raised by, believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see. Now today it's believe nothing you hear, believe nothing you see. I don't even know what the new saying's going to be because I look at some of the AI stuff thinking it's real, and then I go, I don't think that's real. And it really leaves a lot of question. And then you were talking about the technology of the phone calls. I can't tell you how many I get them, and I think it's a live person talking, and I just be quiet, and they're waiting on me to answer. And my answer will kick them into their next part of their script. And I go, oh my God, this must be what they call AI. It's amazing when you figure that out.
They're definitely out there. So yeah, we're living in a brave new world, and so I think there's a premium now on being strategic and being a trusted advisor and the human to human contact. And 75% of the workforce is millennial and Gen Z under the age of 44. I mean, it's 25% are not, but it's really important that we don't have these empty suits running around. It's important to have acumen and strategy and really understanding your product and understanding the client's business and that whole concept of the trusted advisor. And so you can use AI to fool the prospect or using AI to become so much sharper and to prepare. And there's AIs that would be running right now and feeding me talking points on you and your business and Florida and giving me things to say. Well, if I had it running on the call. So that stuff does exist. It's very prevalent in the software sales world, but I don't know if it's jumped the shark to all the verticals yet, you know?
Now, you've written several books. You've written, quite a bit on this concept and many others. What are some of the best books that you personally feel you've written, and why is that?
Yeah, so I've written 11 books. It's interesting. My father was a linguistics PhD. He studied at University of Michigan in Berkeley, and he studied ancient, Sanskrit and Mandarin Chinese of all things. Yeah, so it was just part of growing up for me, the love of the written word. And so as I got into selling in my mid 30s, I started writing methodologies and getting into reading a lot of books. So my first big book was called Tech Powered Sales, and I predicted the future of sales technology through 2035, 2045, 2055, all the way to the singularity. And so in many respects, I predicted ChatGPT. Now I sound like Al Gore invented the internet, right? It's like we didn't call it that, but we did predict that there would be buying and selling AI. So if you're interested in how far sales could go, that's that one. Then I ended up writing a tactical manual because I realized, hey, we don't all have the budgets to afford all this stuff. So I wrote this thing called Sales Superpowers, and that's more about neurolinguistic programming and behavioral psychology and assuming we just have a phone, email, and LinkedIn, how short should the email be and what should it the social proof be and the storytelling and what are the micro components and tactics of contacting strangers and getting meetings. And I could go through a lot of them. I've done things on AI. The most recent book I have, though, is much more primal and fundamental. It's more like 48 laws of power. It's called The Frame. So you can go to theframebook.com is where it is. And it's really more about frame psychology, identity, how you carry yourself, power, status, persuasion, um, in high stakes situations. So before you go into that huge meeting, you're going to ask for fundraising, you're going on a date, you're going in front of a, a powerful person. How do you compose yourself? How do you ask yourself this? How do you raise your frame? How do you hold the frame when the frame breaks? How do you regain it? Now you don't even use this word day to day, but you understand what I'm saying. That's the funny thing because it's universal, the metaphor. Another way to look at it is imagine like you're at a seven and I'm in a seven. You're an eight, I'm a seven. You're a nine, I'm 10. But you're meeting with a prospect or a client or a politician who's like very dominant and aggressive. I won't name one, but picture that. So
Yeah.
do you try to be really powerful and match them? Do you do kind of a social aikido and pull back and let them be powerful and ask questions and show curiosity? How do you deal with these characters? I mean, Joe, I'd say you're a master of this concept.
Well, you've learned one thing I've learned is be a chameleon with it. Kind of
Yeah,
don't try to overtake someone. Of course, when you're dealing with the president, our current president, one thing you definitely have to keep in mind is you don't overshadow him. You cannot. It's you
exactly.
become, and you don't want to because you'll lose your whole purpose of being there and now competing and doing something that you go, why did I even go that route? I wasted a wonderful opportunity. So I agree. I learned early on, And I hear what you're saying, and it's so important. And that you want to be able to walk into that meeting room and compliment the person and pull from them and state a task. I get people all the time that come meet with me and they'll talk 30 minutes about nothing. And I'm sitting there going, you've gotten 29 more minutes than most people do with me. And I just scratch my head and I go, I'll never deal with them again. But, you know, coaching, like you're talking about, is one of the things that is always good, getting a refresher, going into those, paying attention, reading the books. You know, I tell people, why do I read the Bible? So I can remind myself how to behave. It isn't that I don't know how to behave. It freshens it up and puts it right in my front thought, because we repress so many things. And instead of me walking away going, oh God, I wish I'd have done that, I love being prepared. And I love what you're talking about with the frame and bringing that.
Yeah. I read that book, my own book, multiple times because it gets me into that game state, and it does remind me, and I think it's really good. I think we read for once for information and twice for transformation, but there are a lot of beautiful books like that over the years. Like I know Tony Robbins loved this James Allen book called As a Man Thinketh, which is
I
all
love it. I was just
positive
about to mention
psychology.
that.
Yeah, I love that. I
Just
read
about
a
to
ton of
mention.
that. So I what I've been searching for, I'm in my mid 40s, is well, what's going to be my addition to the canon? So one of the hardest things as a writer is there's nothing new under the sun. So what you can do though is you can mash up styles, right? You can take acoustic music and put it with hip hop. We've got acoustic hop. You can take, right? So we're kind of looking at persuasion and the frame and pitching before that. So in the book we talk about Napoleon and Cleopatra and like, all these different historical figures like Churchill and what it must have been like before going into battle or before having the speech. How do you compose yourself to do something so massive, like an inauguration speech or something that really matters? So, and everyone has a frame, like from Nelson Mandela to the Dalai Lama to Trump, to everyone has like an interesting way they carry themselves, like a vibe, like a power that even radiates before they speak. It you pick up on it, and so can that be adjusted? Can you formulate your own? And what's your highest vision of yourself? Are you holding yourself back? And so we go through all these cool chapters, and I think that one of the most interesting scenes is just when your frame is breaking. And I've never seen a book that helps you recompose yourself when you're in a meeting or you're in a tense situation and it's going south. You kind of just go, okay, I bombed this call, I bombed this meeting. But you can actually, just like in sports, you can regain composure. It's really a decision, an instant. Like, okay, get fired up and get back in the game mentally. But I don't think people see that as much outside of those sports situations. They kind of just get dejected, like, well, we failed the pitch. you
I
know
would think a lot of people run into that in scenarios where they don't study their opponent or person they're meeting with, their client or their potential
yeah,
client. Because you brought up a very good point. In sports, if you don't watch those films and see what your opponent's going to do, their whole objective for that game is to take you out by surprise, to throw you
right,
off. And you don't want to do that in business, but it can happen when you don't understand. I mean, I've had people that I didn't pay attention. They were very earthly and they loved the earth and they loved environmental, they loved charity. And I talked about developing and building and tearing down trees. And they just looked at me and I could tell I wasn't getting it. And then I had to reverse it and say, okay, the development is going to focus on parks and we're going to focus on more green space and we're going to focus on environment. And then they perked up and it was like I was talking to a whole different person.
yeah. And that's about reading the room and being
Yeah.
curious and being tapped into your audience. And yeah, you gain a kind of mastery, sort of a self control over your mind and ability to read the person in front of you. And it's also almost that unconscious confidence. So as you get better and better at public speaking and selling and interacting with people, you get to a level where it's almost like that scene in the Matrix where the bullets are flying and you're moving like
Yeah.
faster. Because right now, even talking to me, you're able to like talk to me, hear what I have to say, think of what you have to say. You can swivel the camera, you can look in on the situation. But a lot of people, they're feeling anxiety or pressure. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to deal with it. And so that's where frame psychology is. It's an exploration of inner being, inner power, self-confidence, self-esteem, and just the analysis of that, just the awareness of that often changes things. Like you can look at branding and marketing and go, hey, is that really the highest frame? Right? You look at something you put out, it looks kind of cheap, kind of looks low ticket, but you didn't even really think of that because you haven't hit it with the litmus test of what frame am I putting out there? Like there's people that have a luxury product, but then their marketing, their branding, their positioning online is very much it doesn't align. It's a very quick analysis too that I'm always doing, you know. So that's what also comes out of reading these books.
Who's your typical client? How does a client find you? Who's your typical one? Who
Yeah.
should seek out your services?
Well, I work with a lot of, sort of C-level executives, CEOs and founders who are trying to bring business to their companies. I work with consultants, I work with solopreneurs. Anyone who's selling anything tends to need different types of techniques because they're trying to break through. So, not only people in the tech and software businesses, like I work with one of the largest real estate coaching organizations in the US. I work with, Fortune 500 real estate people, but they usually have some kind of active client acquisition motion, whether that's a team they have built or they're doing founder led growth. They're going out and they're bootstrapped or they're building up the business or they took a round. Then there's just this huge legion of people that are coaches and consultants right now. Even a lot of people listening here, I mean, 40% of you are probably side hustling, right? You're doing some kind of services based business and you're wondering how to grow it. So I love a lot of the authors like Alan Weiss, Million Dollar Consulting, or David C. Baker, who did The Business of Expertise. But then I've taken, sort of the realm of consulting, Deloitte, McKinsey, Accenture, Bain, BCG, but then I fused that with the software business. And then I fused that with the life coaching industry because there's all these interesting life coaches. You go to Sedona and you pay like 200 grand to get on the waiting list. And, and I thought that stuff. I was like, well, people are buying it. So yeah, that's it's less about like the persona or the ICP, the ideal client profile, and more I'm niched on the problem that I solve. So you meet a business and they're like, yeah, we need more clients. And so that's where I step in. I'm like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? What are you doing on email? What are you doing on phones? How are you, running referral systems? What kind of tech stacks are you using? That's where I ultimately come in. And I've had clients go from 5K a month to doing like 100K in a week, and I've helped a lot of people leave some kind of corporate job and go build up a consultancy themselves, some kind of, an S corp or a C corp or an LLC.
Yeah, sharing so much, and the financial independence, being able people doing it to be able to live in environments like this, be able to enjoy
Exactly.
the weather, and as we start this new year, so many people made New Year's resolutions and new directions. What would be a piece of advice you could give them to bring out the new year?
Yeah, so I have this interesting concept. So there's this big word, which many of you know, which is ontology, which is sort of the science of being, of consciousness. You can think of it simply with this model is most people are looking for like the tactics and techniques, the outer shell. And you're going to know this from sports, right? We already go down a level to say, okay, think positive because we can only control our reaction and our attitudes to the events that happen, right? We can have faith but deep down there's being. Who are we being? What's our identity? If I think to myself, I'm a chain smoker, and then I go and I stop smoking cigarettes, I'm a chain smoker testing out non-smoking versus I'm a non-smoker and making that decision on the level of identity. But that happens with your income. Certain people, you put them on a polygraph and say, okay, you earn 600 grand a year, 500 grand a year, 400 grand a year. And it's like lie, lie, lie. And then we get to 100 grand a year and there's the comfort zone and that's who they are. So I'm trying to move the identity level of who they're being. So there's books on this like psycho-cybernetics. I mean, I think prayer works, affirmations work, but because we're trying to get deep down in there. Therapy, there's lots of ways, but I would say don't just write it on a piece of paper. And that's good to do, and that's tactical maybe out here. Assess how you think about it, and then assess who would you have to be to do that. Because if you can ask that question, it changes your thinking and it changes the doing, and that's where you get real change. It takes 21 days to change the neuroplasticity of the brain. So test it out for at least 30 days to get there. I mean, how about you, man? How have you changed some of your habits and how have you hit some of your goals? Is
Just
that
by
resonating?
constantly going, it's not a failure. There's just results, and you keep pushing them and keep going. But
Yeah,
also understanding that my way of doing things, that was one of the biggest things early on I had to accept. My way of doing things is not necessarily the only way or the right way, and be
right.
more flexible. Especially when I hit government, I had to realize and change, because government hijacked everything that I had ever learned about business. But Justin, I
Right.
want to thank you for joining us. We get to the top of the hour here. How can people reach out to you? How can they get the book? Let them know.
Well, yeah, so honored to be here, Joe. If you just go to Amazon anywhere in the world and put in Justin Michael, you're going to see a bunch of my books. The newest one is The Frame. You could also just go to theframebook.com and you'll find it there. It's a black book with a gold ring. You can't miss it. And I'm on LinkedIn, just Justin Michael. So, yeah, this has been a blast.
Yeah. So I want to remind our listeners, Justin Michael, The Frame, it's coming out. Go out there and get this book. It's amazing. We're starting a new year, starting a new you. You want to get out, do some amazing things in life. You can do it. It's never too late. And that is why so many people are living an amazing life. And they're living, working, shopping, and playing in the great state of Florida. And that's why the rest of the world paying attention. We didn't rewrite the book here. We just got good mentors like Justin Michael teaching us and saying, hey, stay focused on it. And you can live in paradise. Justin, thank you for joining us this weekend. We appreciate it and look forward to reading that book.
Thanks so much, Joe. Good stuff.